All right, I think we're on. Hi everybody, hope you are doing well today. And what we're going to do this morning, and I did an unboxing the other day on the Extras channel, is that we are going to be taking out these little 8bitdo kits that showed up in my mailbox the other day. I didn't know these were coming. And what these are little kits that allow you to turn your old retro video game controllers into wireless controllers that work with pretty much every modern system out there. So what I'm going to do is grab this one. This is from my childhood. It's never been opened before. This is kind of like a time capsule of dirt and crumbs and everything. And we're going to open this up. We're going to swap out the guts of this with the new guts that we're going to put into it. So this thing's going to be made into a wireless controller, and it will work with the Nintendo Switch here. But it also should work with the PC running Steam, so maybe I'll grab a laptop and try that out real quick when we're ready to go here, and we'll see how this works. Now they say this requires no soldering, so what they do in the box here, let me show you what comes inside the box. Let me check my watch here real quick. Oh, just a quick thing. What comes in the box here is the actual circuit board. I charged it up a little bit before I started streaming here, so we would have something there for that. And oh, already we got our first super chat, so thank you, Steve, for that. Much appreciated. They give you a screwdriver. I'm going to talk about the screwdriver, though, in a second, because I didn't yet take apart my controller, but I did a little dress rehearsal. I had some time this morning, and the screwdriver was like almost stripping the screws. So I think you might want to get a screwdriver with maybe a better tip to it. This one doesn't seem like it's sharp enough, and these screws have been in here for a very long time. And this is the power cord, and this plugs into the little top of the circuit board that's on the end of the ribbon cable here. So that is the whole scoop on how all of this works. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this controller first. I already did a latency test with this setup with the wired controller, so we'll see if there's any latency added to the mix here. For that test, what we're going to use is my analog NT Mini, and we're going to plug in one of these 8bitdo wireless receivers into it. And what's cool about this device, if you haven't seen these before, is that these add wireless capability to anything that uses the original NES connector, including the original NES. So you could actually use this same controller that you were plugging into your old NES. You can use this with the new version of what we're doing here. And you can use your old controller wirelessly with these 8bitdo adapters. So that's how all of that works. So let me just do my usual disclaimers here up front. So some of the stuff here I bought. So I bought the NT Mini. These controllers, this one was my wife's controller, so this came with her control deck many years ago. She kept hers away from the sun. Look at the color difference here between the two. Let me pull up my other camera here. You can get a better look at this. Look at that color difference. Isn't that crazy? So one is definitely not like the other. So most of these old things I bought myself. The 8bitdo wireless adapter I also bought myself. However, what we are playing with today, these kits, 8bitdo sent to the channel free of charge, but they're not paying for what you're about to see, nor are they reviewing this live stream, obviously, before we upload it. But I always like to do my disclaimers, even when we are streaming live. So let's get to work here and see what goes on. Now I'm going to be keeping an eye on the chat as it's going, but I might miss a few things here or there. And we're going to first now, I think what we'll do first is get the old controller taken apart. They do have some instructions here in the box, and all they say to do is basically unscrew and remove the old stuff. So we're going to use this old controller here and get this one worked on real quick. So let's get this positioned here. Now I'm going to use a different screwdriver because the one they gave me was stripping the screws. These screws have been in here for a really long time, so I want to make sure that we're able to get this out effectively. So let's just start unscrewing screws here. And I need a better overhead view here so you can see what's going on, but this is really not all that complicated. We're just going to get these screws out. And then I've got this is one of the best things I ever bought, which is one of these little magnetic screw holders. So when you're unscrewing things and you don't want the screws to fall off, they stay, generally, as you can see here, they stay pretty secure on that magnetic pad. You just want to keep it away from your credit cards and all the other stuff there. So let's keep unscrewing here. Good morning, computer technician. So you got 72 people watching me unscrew things. And there's a lot of dust bunnies on this screw. All right, there we go. Now this controller, I believe, is the one that I got with my NES probably 30-something years ago. So this is like a time capsule of who knows what inside of here. Hopefully nothing is living inside of this controller. That would be really nasty. But this screw's got some schmutz on it too. Let's get that off of here. All right. That one does not want to come out. I have to get my Leatherman out here to grab this sucker. Let's get a little more unscrewing going on here. Yeah, this controller definitely looks its age. And I think it's probably been, you know, tossed across the room a couple of times. And, you know, these games were hard back in the day, you know. Oh, boy, this screw's really in there. Let's see if we can get it out. Yeah, some of these are really, really tight. That one's like really tight. I'm gonna be careful. I don't want to strip that screw. Ooh, I may have to get a slightly larger head. Let's get the rest of these off here and see how hard these other ones come out. So Vortex PC Gamer says, I feel so young being 19 when I hear 30 years ago. I'll tell you what, it will happen quickly. And you know what's funny about the passage of time? One of my little cousins, I was talking to him when he was probably like 5 or 6 years old. He had a very good insight, which was, I said to him, I said, you know, time gets a lot faster the older you get. And he goes, duh. He goes, it's really just the percentage of your life you've experienced. So he was kind of right about that. Like when you're 7 years is a lifetime. But when you're my age, it's now just a couple of years. So that is that. All right, so we're having some screw problems here. So I'm going to try to get a slightly larger head here to see if I can get this screw out without stripping everything. So let's swap this one out for the other one. I bought this kit on Prime Day, and this has been a fantastic addition to my repertoire because I always have the right size screw now, even when I didn't before. Let's see if I can get this thing out. Boy, that one does not want to come out, and I'm worried I'm going to strip it. You know what I might do is I might switch to another controller. Maybe we'll do this one because it's a little bit newer. Because those screws are really in there, and I'm going to just strip the you-know-what out of that screw. So I think what we're going to do is sacrifice my wife's controller to the modern, the modern equipment here. Let's see. Let's get this thing back together. Sorry, folks. We're just going to quickly reassemble this controller because that one screw is really not coming out, and I just don't want to have extra screws laying all over the place here. So let's just get this thing reassembled. So something must have gotten into that screw to like not only keep it screwed in, but probably keep it like completely cemented into the thing there. It's probably a can of soda I spilled on it years and years ago. One thing about these controllers is that they are incredibly resilient. When you think about the fact that, you know, this is definitely at least 30 years old and it still works, which I can't say about my Sega Genesis controllers. Those do not work, and those are younger than these are. But this one has been a faithful servant and will remain a wired controller for the rest of its life. So let's get that back on there. And we're going to now grab my wife's controller here and grab that. I've got about 4 or 5 of these around the house, so I was not as reluctant to go do these as the other one. So let's try this again now. Take 2. And this one feels like it's coming up a lot easier. So we'll do that. Yeah, it's one of those things, those cemented screws, they're hard to get up. Yeah, but I found with whatever plastic they used back in the day when they created these controllers, it was a really high impact plastic, and you know, whatever formulation they used, it was really, really good. So I've been very impressed by how these things continue to work. And what's funny too is that up until a couple of years ago, we didn't do all that much, at least I didn't, with my retro game controllers. You know, I was doing mostly emulation, and it wasn't really until the NT Mini came out here that I really started doing more with them. So they kind of have gotten a new lease on life, and this, I think, might be really intriguing because it's going to make this controller, first of all, very portable, because you're not going to have a cable sticking out the top of it anymore, and you get the original feel. You know, all the guts are going to get swapped out here, but the controller itself is going to be the same. So we've got 2 center screws now. Hopefully these all come out. And I'll tell you, these screws are in here. You can hear them like clicking when you first get them loosened up. last screw. Come on, give it to me. Yeah, that's right. Okay. So let's get that screw out of here. All right, so now we have the original NES circuit board from 1987 or so. That's when that was. I'm going to start recording some B-roll here, folks, because I'm going to do a full review on this a little later. So this is what it looks like inside. Now, what's really cool about the layout on these things, and I think I have a setting here where I can zoom in a little closer. I am going to do a review soon of the camera that I'm using for this endeavor here. Yeah, check that out. I can zoom from my little TriCaster control panel here. Let me just get the image centered in front of the camera so you can see it. I'm so bad at positioning things like this. So what's cool about how they designed the controller is that they anticipated that you would snag the wire. So you see what they did? They have like the controller wire kind of running through these little plastic pieces there. So we're just going to undo that. And all it takes here to swap this out is just to pull the board out. That's it. And this is the old board. And I think this rubber thing needs to be back on here, so we'll put that down there. That's what the old board looks like. And our new modern retro goodness is going to be here. So Soundman, I got a camera from PTZ Optics. It's similar to the NewTek camera, but because it uses NDI, but it's a little less expensive. So I'm just wrapping up like my overall view of it, and I should have something for all of you to see soon. So this is the new board. So they kind of line up very nicely. So let me show you what's on this board so you know what we're talking about here. We have, yeah, it is a brown PC board, isn't it? One side is. This one's green on both sides. So this is the wireless radio here. All your contacts are pretty much the same. I mean, it's funny how things don't really change all that much for game controllers. It's still just making electrical contact, right? And then on the back, we have a battery. And then there's a USB connector here. This, I'm assuming, is going to be for, excuse me, for doing firmware updates. But when you have it inside the controller, you no longer have access to the USB port. So I think what's going to happen is, as if they have a firmware update, you will likely have to take the controller apart again to do the firmware update. They do firmware updates occasionally, but I think they've gotten their firmware down now, so I'm guessing they're not anticipating you having to do that. And then this thing here is where you plug the power cable in to charge it. And they're saying you're not going to get all that much battery life out of this, maybe 7 hours of play, they said. So it's not as as much battery life as you had before. Now what you do with the old board is you just put it back in the static bag that it comes with here and just store it safely away there. So we will do that. So you can always revert your controller back to its original intent or purpose that way. So I think what I'm going to do here is I guess I should probably mount it in the board here. So let's do that and get everything lined up here. Can you all see what I'm doing? Yes. And that is it, folks. It's that simple. And then we're going to take this little, let me try to get in a little bit closer again here. Thank you, Astifu, for your super chat contribution. That is much appreciated. I wish I was soldering something so you could have like the potential of total disaster, but not the case. Now, if you wrote in about this ribbon cable, he said there's a little too much ribbon cable there, so you have to be a little careful with that. What I want to do is get this piece lined up here so that we can put the whole thing back together again. So I don't know if it's supposed to go. It doesn't go around that thing, so I think I just have to just kind of wind it around here. So they did give us a little too much ribbon cable. Unless I could flip this over this way, maybe. Just kind of snug that. Yeah, that'll work. So let's get this in place here. Yeah, Ryan Plumley says the first-party Nintendo controllers always felt the best. And you know what, too? I think when you think about like developers and what they're doing with these games, they are obviously targeting what they know most people have for a controller, for example, which is the original equipment. Yeah, so this is the one tricky part here, is just getting this little button nub in here. There we go. All right, I think we're good. And then once I get the rest of it centered on, I think we'll be okay. All right, feels good. So now, yeah, that ribbon cable really is, I do not like that ribbon cable. All right, so now we're going to put this part back on top, and then we're going to screw the controller back together. That is it. Although it's not coming back together very well over there. I think that, oh, it's flat there. Let's see. Oh, it's already turning itself on. As you can see, a little light is blinking there because I touched a button. So we know the electronics are working, still haven't broken anything. But it's not, it's this little gap right here. I just have to maybe snap this down maybe. Let's see. There we go. All right, so now the screws will hold it back in place. All right, so we're good there. All right, got 97 people watching me assemble this game controller. That is awesome. How many of you are at work right now? I'm at work right now, but this is what I do for work now. And I figured this is like a really fun little live stream to do because I'm going to be doing this anyhow, so I may as well have you all watching while I do it. So we're just going to screw this back together now. And I'm going to stop my B-roll recording real quick here. But see, I always figured, you know, like when I had my full-time job, there'd be things that, you know, I would sometimes have music on in the background. So, you know, having a live stream going while you're doing your mundane tasks around the office, you know, that stuff is fine. I still have mundane tasks to do here because this is the beginning of the month, so I have to get all of my, I have to do my reporting for sales tax for any of the local consulting work that I did, so I've got some paperwork to fill out, so all sorts of stuff I got to do later today, so I may pop on some of my favorite creators while I do some work at the desk. It's not all glamour here, sitting in your basement all day long, you know, it's, all right. Okay, so we got that in there. So the charging is through this little plug here at the top. So the cable they give you, I'm going to wait till I get the rest of it put together before I plug it in, but they give you this little cable here, and this goes into the top. It just kind of snaps in, and that is how you charge it. So you don't need the USB visible for that, and it charges over USB, so the other end here is just standard 5-volt USB. And let's get the rest of it put together here. This was pretty easy, at least this part. And I'm guessing it's going to work because the electronics are on here, and you know the controller is not any kind of fancy device here. It's a simple little electrical thing where when you push the controller down, you're closing a circuit, and when you lift the controller up, you break the circuit, or the button or the thing or whatever. So I don't know much about electronics, but I do know enough about that. And let's get the rest of it put together here. Because Sonny Boy is not enjoying what he's watching here. He says, "Why did I subscribe to this channel?" I don't know. All right. Yeah, I don't know if it's quite proprietary, but certainly it's going to be hard to find, yeah, if you lose that. And look how short the cable is. Now, granted, you're not going to be hooking this up to your console. This is designed to be, let me get this thing back in frame here. This is designed to be completely, you know, just a charging cable, and the controller is just wireless. But I don't know why I'm having such a hard time actually placing this cable in front of you here. But it's really short. So I have this power brick by my desk that is, that sits on. All right, I am back, I think. Okay, so we are back. And now we are going to connect up the little wireless adapter here. And what this is going to do is hopefully connect up with our NT Mini. Okay, so let's get this going. And let's turn on, I guess I have to follow the instructions on the back of the sheet here. So I want to do a connection to our 8bitdo receiver. So I'm going to hit Start and B to turn on the controller. So we're going to hold down Start and B, and we should see it start blinking here. Yeah, it's blinking. And then I need to hit the pairing button on the NT Mini here, or yeah, there we go. And hopefully these two things will see each other. Let's see what we get here. Here's what it looks like, by the way. So far we're not pairing up. So let me see what we have to do. Start plus B to turn on the controller. Okay, oh, I then have to press both the pair button on the receiver and select on the controller to sync them. So I got to hold down this and hold down select. There we go. All right, so now we're blinking here. And I'm seeing a lot of blinking. Yeah, I'm going to have to call Comcast because it's just, you know, every time I do a stream, either it works perfectly or it just completely dies out. So I'm monitoring it on my laptop here. It looks like I'm buffering again here. Yeah. All right, we're still waiting for the two of these things to connect to each other. So press both pair on the receiver and select on the adapter. Both LEDs of the receiver will become solid when connections are successful. So they are not successful yet. So let me hold down select again and just hold this down here. What's funny with these controllers is that I often have like an issue with these things getting to connect initially, and then they usually work out their problems. Let's see. Oh, so Ulrich Riddle wants to know if it feels any heavier or lighter. You know, if anything, it doesn't feel heavier. If I hold both of them in my hand here, they feel about the same. What's different is that it feels, you know, there's a liberating experience here having, you know, less wire to restrict the movement here, so you don't have that wire continually snagging it everywhere. So that felt a little better. Thank you, Matt, for your super chat contribution. Yeah, I don't pay much attention to trolls. Life is too short. And you know what's funny with the trolls is typically they haven't really desired to do any of the work it takes to do something like this. So it's a lot easier just to like cut people down than it is to actually do the work to do something great yourself, you know? And my thing is that if you like what I do, great. If you don't, no problem. There's plenty of other choices out there to explore. And sorry if this is about watching paint dry here. Yeah, we're just not getting pairing here, so let me see what else is happening. So it says to do, so 8bitdo, retro receivers, and USB adapter. Press Start plus B on the controller. Press the pair button on the receiver and select on the controller to sync them. Both LEDs on the receiver. You almost wonder if you have to start the select button after you hit pair on the other thing or vice versa. Let's see. I always have issues with these things. I didn't see the second part of Matt's thing. He's giving me some lunch money, which is great. We'll be heading out to lunch once I figure this thing out. So let's take a look here. I wonder if I can get that camera over there so you can see the blinking. Let's take a little change of scenery here. Zoop. And we'll just get this centered around here. So one thing with live streams is that they often don't move as quickly as the regular ones do. So when I edit, I always edit out these issues where things don't work, which is often here on the channel. So let's zoom this up a little bit here. Wrong direction. All right, let's see. So right now you can see we're just getting blinking on both things here. I think these mods cost about $20. So they're not all that expensive, but if they don't work, they don't really help matters either. All right, so let's try this again. I'm going to hold down Start and B, put it into Bluetooth mode. Now I've got one blink per cycle. Now I'm going to hit the select button again. Okay, now we're blinking again. And we're not pairing, so I'm going to hit the pairing button again on the thing to reset that process. So let's see what happens. Try to get a better view here without destroying all my stuff here. What we have here is a failure to communicate. Yeah, they're not selling these on Amazon either, so it looks like this is probably going to be a niche product. more something for the enthusiast crowd, which I could see this being more of an enthusiast thing, especially because you have to take out all the guts out of your old controller to make this work. So what it doesn't tell you is if you should just press it or hold and press it. So let's try that and see if that makes any difference here. So let's try this again. All right, that's a good point. Somebody said unplug the retro receiver and plug it back in. That is a good suggestion. So let's try that real quick here. There we go. Plug it back in. Press that down. When in doubt, reboot, as they say. And I'm still getting blinking here. Let's see what we can do here to get this to work. So give us a few more minutes. What I might do maybe is switch over to the Switch if this doesn't seem to work, or we can maybe try one of my laptops or something. Okay, so start in B to turn on the controller. LED blink once. Press the pair button, which we did. Let's try this again here. Start plus B, and then we're going to hit select here. You know what I wonder? I wonder if the firmware on this receiver is out of date. That might do it. So why don't we let's wait for that to finish doing its thing here. I'm going to go get so I might take a break here for a second. I'll let you all commiserate amongst yourselves. And I am going to go and just boot up my computer around the bend there and update the firmware on this thing. I think that might be our problem. So let me go do that real quick. I thought of everything today, but not that. So I'm going to put on some music for you all, and I will be right back when I am done. Okay, we're back. Let's try a new thing here. That was a quick, one thing about these little cheap adapters, well, not cheap, but simple adapters is the firmware does not take long to fix things. So, all right, there we go. So now we're going to hit Start and B again on the controller. And we'll get that blinking. And then we're going to hit Select, and we're going to hit the pairing button here. And hopefully we'll get some solid lights this time. Aha! There we go. Look at that. Boom. All right, we are in business. So first thing I'm going to do is just check out the buttons here to make sure they all work. So B works, A works, Start button works, Select button works, up, down, left, right works. Up, up, down, left, right. Okay, good. This is a little ROM that I got, and it's a controller tester. I don't have it dialed into my video system at the moment, but what's cool is you can see how fast you can push the button. You can measures turbo speed and stuff too, which is kind of cool. So that's good, it works. So now what I want to do here is a quick latency test, and what I do for that, pardon my big tripod here, is I take out my iPhone and I shoot the screen at 240 frames per second, and we can actually calculate when we pull the file off how long it takes for this to work. So I'm going to switch into slow-mo mode here, and I'm going to switch back to my other view. And what I like to do is just kind of do something like, this is not like a scientific test, but it's close enough because you really do get a feel for how long it takes for a button push to register. Now earlier I did a test where we got about 40 milliseconds when the controller was wired in directly. And actually it's the same controller now because this is the one I had plugged in with the wire earlier. All right, so I got enough samples there. And now I have to switch over to my computer. And we're going to pull off the stuff there. So let's take a look at this here. Let me go over to my computer screen here, and I'm going to pull up my image transfer. I actually have I'll show you what this looks like. I keep a spreadsheet of everything that I test, so I always have some point of comparison. So I put the controller, the device, the display we're running, and the milliseconds. So I haven't done a lot of latency testing on this monitor yet, or at all, because I use the Samsung gaming monitor I have for everything, because one of the things with latency is that the monitor introduces latency, so you have to really test everything on exactly the same thing every time you do it. So I'm going to load up image capture real quick and pull off that file we just did. I may have to unplug my phone and plug it back in again to get it to refresh on this. And I'll monitor chat here also. So usually I have somebody in here with me to all right, hopefully all right, we're back again, I think. All right, so the file is copied over. We're just getting up to the fun part here, too. Okay, so let me pull up my screen here, and hopefully we're still live. It looks like we're barely hanging on here stream-wise, so hopefully this will last long enough that I can at least show you what we're doing. What I might do, if this keeps dying on me, is I might change my resolution to 720p, and that might maybe get us a little bit better performance here. I'm so frustrated. This is my point. When I'm ranting about all this net neutrality stuff, the problem is I have no choice. I can't say to Comcast, you stink, get better, or I'll go here. I can't go anywhere. This is it. So, it's like impeding my business activity. It drives me crazy. Okay, so let me go over to hang on, let me just switch out of this, make sure I didn't just reveal something I shouldn't have. Yeah, I'm good. Okay, so let me go over to, make sure basic, yeah, we're okay. Oh, I'm gonna need to change that. Okay. All right, so let's go over to my QuickTime file here. And what I do is basically get every frame. So what happens with QuickTime is that it often will give you these little sliders so you can play like at full speed and then slow it down, but I want it slow for everything, so I just do that. And then I kind of go in the middle here and just find a good example where I can very cleanly see where the button is pushed down. So if I skip, so right there, see it's like boom, right there. So what we're going to do now is count frames. So we'll say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 is where it hits. So it's giving us about 3 more frames than we had with the other thing. So what I'm going to do now is we're just going to switch back over to here. And let me make sure we're still live here. All right, so far you saw all of that. And Soundman, no, we don't have AT&T here in the neighborhood anymore because AT&T sold their entire landline operation to this horrible phone company that has done nothing. Like this phone company called Frontier bought all of AT&T's wired services, including the very limited UVerse thing that they were doing. And they have been in market now for 7 or 8 years, I think, and have done nothing to expand the network. It is horrible. The service is terrible. I have a landline phone that I still keep just for the heck of it, $45 a month for just a landline phone. I got to get rid of it. My wife wants the security of knowing that we can be reached whenever. So very frustrating. So we had 13 on that one. So I'm just going to copy this down. We're going to call this the wireless, oops. And we're going to use the same display here, and 13, and we're just going to do a little copy of my formula here, and that means we have 52 milliseconds. So it's about a 12 millisecond thing here, so what I want to do, just to make sure that we're right here, that it is actually what it is, we're going to skip ahead to another test here just to make sure it's consistent. So let's get that button push. So there you go. You can see my finger kind of hit it right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yep, around 13. So it's pretty consistent. So let's go back again. And this is a fun thing to do. You can do this with all of your game controllers because it's such an eye-opener because you think it's so immediate, but when you push the finger down, watch this. Here's the fingers. Boom! It hit the button. And we have all these frames before it lights up, right? So let's try and count this one out again too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yep, this one's 11. So it's pretty close. I mean, it's giving, a little bit of lag, but not significantly so. So I don't think anyone's really going to notice it. And still, like, to have well under 60 milliseconds for a wireless controller, I think is pretty darn good. And the other thing that helps here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yep, around 10, 11. So we're not seeing a ton of lag being introduced here. And what's really cool about this is that you can, with these analog NT minis, is that there's this very little lag that the console itself introduces. So this is probably better than what it's going to be on PC or that kind of thing. So that is something to keep in mind there. Let's take a look at a few questions, then we'll try to get the switch working. Let's see. Yeah, it'll get stable for a while, and I can guarantee you it's going to drop off again just because this happens. So here's what happens with these streams. Either it works great the whole time or it doesn't work great at all. Now, I can tell you what's going to happen. I'm going to call Comcast, and they're going to tell me, well, you're doing business activity out of your house. You need to have a business plan. And the problem with the business plans is that they cost like twice as much, and you get lower bandwidth as a result. But if I can get reliability, I might consider it. And here's the real kicker. And I talked about this on the wrap-up the other day. Then I'll get back to this. I know you guys came to watch this. When I went around my neighborhood after I watched this video about how the fiber nodes work in the neighborhoods. And what I discovered is that I've got fiber optic. I kid you not, at the end of my driveway, there was a fiber optic cable, like right there. But, you get what you get. So that's how they work, and they're just going to get worse. Trust me. David Brown is in Connecticut as well as I am, and he says, yeah, he says, believe it or not, Frontier is worse. It is. And actually, when Frontier took over, so it was like this day where, you know, one day you're with AT&T, the next day you're with Frontier. There was no like roll in or anything, and it was a disaster. People really just did not have a good time of it. So crazy stuff. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is we're going to shut down the Analog NT Mini because it has served its purpose. We got our data for the video that we're going to do for reviewing this. And now I'm going to get the Nintendo Switch up and running. Now this works with the Switch apparently. And we'll do a latency test on this also because this is a whole different system, right? So what I'm going to do now is just get my camera zoomed in on that a little better. Wait for it to focus. There we go. And I have found sometimes that pairing things up with the Switch can be problematic, to say the least. So, all right, so we got that going here. And now the Switch. We have to press start and left on the controller, press select to enter pairing mode, and then I'm going to go to my Switch homepage. So, all right, so let's take a look here. So we're going to turn this on here again. So I'm going to hit start and left. All right, so we're on. I'm going to hit select, and we're going to rapidly blink. And go to your Switch homepage and click on controllers. So let's turn this on real quick here. Hit home. We're not going to install the software now. Thank you very much. So we're going to go to controllers. Where is controller? Down here. Okay, so controllers. And now we are in pairing mode. And change grip order. Oops. I always do this. I always push the wrong button on this thing. And now we have to wait for it to show up apparently. Controller will auto-connect to your Switch with the press of start once it has been paired. Let's see, let me read this again. Go to your Switch homepage and click on controllers, then click on change grip order and wait for controller to sync up. LED will become solid when connection is successful. Okay, so it looks like we have to just wait. I've ran into this before with their controllers. Sometimes you just kind of sit at this menu for a long time to get all this working. Yes, so Soundman pays $80 a month for AT&T fiber, 1 gigabit per second up and down. And you know what happens is that when there's a competitor, then they get competitive. That's what happens. And I'm totally cool with not regulating anybody if there's choice. But here's the thing, and I'm still waiting for this to pair up, which is why I'm ranting. My rant is continuing here. What we had here in Connecticut was Comcast used to go for a review every 10 years of their franchise. In other words, they were granted a franchise to operate in the state as a regional monopoly. And if they were not living up to expectations of the community, they could get that franchise yanked. So they were very responsive, especially in the later years of that franchise agreement, to what the community needed. And they managed to get that removed from the law. So now there's no overhead, no oversight. So not only, and here's the worst part, is you can make the argument, well, maybe there's not competition because there's too much regulation, but now the regulation's gone and we still don't have competition. So that's what bugs me. I'm all for, oh, looks like we got it. Okay, we're in. All right, so that was cool. All right, so we're in. So now we got this here. Now here's the thing though, when you're using a Nintendo Switch, obviously there's some games that are going to work on this better than others. I'm not sure how to get out of this menu now. B, nope, maybe A. Oh no, I lost it. Shoot, let me try it again. There's going to be some controllers that work better than others. Or some games, I should say, because you don't have the 3D controls on here like you would on something else. All right, so I'm just going to use this to get out. All right, so we're out of here, and I want to go back. So I'm not sure how it's actually pairing the buttons. All right, so what I'm going to do here is go and load up, let's load up Sonic the Hedgehog, well, something that's more compatible with this kind of controller. So let's do that. Yeah, and here's the thing. I mean, in fairness to these ISPs, because John Ellis is wondering if I could crowdfund my own ISP. I'll do that later. You could. The problem really comes down to this, and this is why I understand why I don't have better service. I live in, not in a rural area, but certainly not a suburb. and it's not a city. So the density is, whoa, the density is not very high here, which means that the number of customers you get per mile is very little. And that's partly why we don't have more choices here. But even in places around the state where there's a ton of people, very dense housing, you don't have a lot. And part of it is just so expensive to run the infrastructure, which is why I'm kind of hopeful for 5G, because if you can get to the pole without a wire, that's going to eliminate a lot of cost for these ISPs, and that might be an area where we could see some progress. All right, so for some reason, oh, you know what it is? I think I just changed the order of the controllers here. So let's see if we can get this controller to become the thing again. So I got to change the grip order again. And part of it is that, all right, change grip order. And so I don't have left-right on the controller. So it says push left-right on the controller. We have no left-right on this controller, so we have to repair, I think. Let's try this again. So I'm going to hold down select. I think I just broke it. Yes, so they do have a version of these conversion kits for Sega. What they haven't come out with yet is a wireless receiver like this one we have for the NES. So you could use it with your PC or something like that, but you're not going to be able to use it with your Sega Genesis, unfortunately. I have a feeling that analog will probably have some kind of... all right, so press A when you're ready. So I'm going to press A. I don't know how these buttons map. Let's see. I think analog is going to have some kind of Sega Genesis console next. I can't see them not doing that. All right, so immediately the controller is paired, but it's not working with Sonic. And I just wonder if maybe these Joy-Cons are taking over. Because if I can hit the button here, let's try to start the game with the Joy-Cons and see what happens here. So I can start it here. It might just be that I don't have the right button mapping on this thing. Let's see. Yeah, it's completely ignoring it. So let's see if we can... I'm going to turn the switch off and back on again, and then have the controller be what I use to wake it. And the controller turned off. Let's turn this back on again. There we go. All right, let's try this again. It's always a little flaky using these controllers, like the 8bitdo controllers with this, because they're not quite a pro controller. Yeah, it's not responding. So this game may not be a good example. So let's look at, I have, here, let's see if let's try one of these retro games. So there's one game I know works, which is, oh, we can do Wonder Boy. That might work too. Let's try. I haven't played Wonder Boy in a while. It's working on the menu here. So I may have to go check out their forums if we're having issues here. Okay, this one looks like it's working better. Yeah, so this works. This is a cool game, by the way. This is a remake of Wonder Boy. I haven't really played it as much as I would like to, because I don't have time to play anything. And apparently there's a button combo that you can do. So they've redone all the artwork from the original game. And there's a button push you can do to make it, let's see, we'll go to options here. And you can do this like at will here. You can switch to the retro visuals, and there's a command that you can do on the switch to just do that. I can't remember what, oh, great. But you can switch it into this retro view here. So let me go into one of the doors so you can see exactly how this works here. We'll just do it the old-fashioned way. Oops. So you can see we got this beautiful, modern interpretation of Wonder Boy. But if I hit Start and go to Retro Visuals, and hit Retro and resume, oops, options, Retro Visuals. And now you can see we get the old 8-bit Sega look to it. Isn't that cool? And the game doesn't stop. You can play it with the retro visuals if you want, or you can turn those off. And you also have the option to use the retro music and sound effects. You can mix and match things. It's really cool. I just haven't had a lot of time to play the whole thing, but it looks awesome. So this does seem to work. That's good. All right, so now what I want to do, and I do this test everywhere, is I want to test the latency on the switch itself. So if we go back to our spreadsheet, I have that in there somewhere. Let's take a look here. I think it's on my controller test. Let's see. So I'll switch you over here so you can see what I'm looking at. So we have my switch. So what I do as I test things, what's nice is the longer I am doing this, the more data I collect. So I have some switch. Okay, here we go. So the Pro controller, and this looks like going to the, this is going to the switch screen with 64 milliseconds in Blaster Master 0. So maybe to be consistent here, we will load up Blaster Master 0. So let's do that. Yeah, so one of the things you'll run into with this on the Switch in particular, as it's being noted in the chat, is that if you don't have all the controls, obviously, you don't have any of the analog sticks, you have 2 buttons versus 4. So certain games that require more buttons are going to be a problem. What might be fun, though, is that when Nintendo does that subscription service they're talking about, we'll be able to play your Nintendo games on your Switch with the real controller, which I think is awesome. So it really feels nice. I have to say, it's kind of cool. They did make, and they think they still do, they make these replica NES controllers that feel very close to this, but there's a certain squishiness to a well broken in 30-year-old controller that this kind of adds some value to that you can't get anywhere else. So let me start this game. We're going to use this as our test bed here, because that's what I did before. I may need to do some other. If anybody knows of a good controller tester for the Switch, please let me know. All right, so let that load up real quick. I think I can change my weapon here. Let's see. This guy's like grenade launcher out. So I'm trying to get something that can react immediately to. Not great. Use a way to switch weapons, maybe. Let's see. Start. There we go. Go to my blaster. I thought I switched to the blaster. Shoot. Yeah, the controls are, you definitely get mixed up on the controls here. So yeah, you know what it is? We have a button issue here. It's not mapping the button correctly, so nothing's happening when I push B. So yeah, you're going to have some mapping issues. This might work better with the SNES controllers versus the NES one on some of these, for sure. All right, so you know what we're going to do for our test here. We're just going to go off the menu, and we'll just kind of look at system settings and see how fast it reacts to that. I think that's what we'll do. And I just want to check and make sure that it doesn't, yeah, so it reacts the same whether I hold the button down or not. So let's take a look at this real quick. And it might be something that I may have to go in and test the Switch controller also, because we were using a game for one of my original tests on this years ago, or last year. So let's see what happens here. We take the phone out. And we're going to do a quick record here. All right. So now what we've done is we've recorded the menu a couple times. We're going to pop the phone back in here. The Switch comes with a controller tester? Where is it? There's actually a button, there's a button tester on this thing? Home controllers and sensors, test input devices. All right, so let's, well, that solves a lot of problems. So home controllers and input devices. Where am I looking here? Home controllers and sensors, test input devices. Where is that? Am I looking in the right spot here? I'm in home. I go to controllers. Under settings, okay. Change grip order, pairing new controllers. Maybe it's in the settings, yeah, let's go into it a little bit further. System settings. Controllers and sensors, there we go. All right. Is there a test, calibrate motion controls, test input devices? Look at that, test controller buttons. Okay. Cool. Well, that's easier. Wow. All right, so I'm going to have to test the Joy-Cons doing the same exercise then. All right, so I'm going to hold down this button, and I'm going to okay. So that completely changes my test strategy here with this, I think. So, all right, so I got some footage. So let's go into my image capture app. And I'm going to refresh this a little bit here, and we'll see what we get. Well, thank you for that tip, Martin. That was great. Yeah, Eric, this will stay on board, so you can definitely come back and watch it. I usually put these as unlisted, but if you go to Lon.TV/livestreams, I'll have it in there, so it will be found or searchable. It looks like the stream has been a little more steady now, which means it'll now crap out because I just talked about it. All right, so let me import this. But the good news is this seems to work. It's actually pretty easy to install. There was really, all you had to do was unscrew the back of this and you were good to go. There wasn't much to it, and it seems to be working pretty nicely. I think what I might want to do, let me get into this shot again. If you look at the top, and some people have pointed this out, this should be more flush than it is. I didn't get it in there the right way, so I need to maybe take it apart and get that more flush. And then when you want to charge it, in case anyone's wondering, because the USB port is covered up, so if you have to do a firmware upgrade later, you're going to have to take the controller apart again. This little connector here just pops into the top of that, and you plug it into your computer or USB charger to charge it. But it doesn't allow you to work as a wired controller, so it is strictly wireless, just so you all are aware of that. Okay, so the file has copied. So let me close up this one so I don't get confused. That whole thing about the Switch having a controller tester built in is like mind-blowing to me. I can't believe it's got that. Okay, that's great. All right, so let's go over to my computer screen, and we'll take a look at our footage that we just captured on the phone. I think it's amazing that these phones can do this. So we'll rewind a little bit here, and I'll go maybe to this one. Okay, here we go. So let's take a look. And there goes my finger. Boom, so we hit it right there is when it really clicks in. So we'll say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19.